Connecting to Twitch TV and TikTok Live. Conducting a sound check because, you know, them gremlins get into the wires. We've been having technical issues like crazy lately here on this channel. So please stand by for a technical echo chamber sound test. Initiating sound check in 3, 2. Oh, that's right. I can't. Can I not do that anymore? Where's my speaker set up here? Check. Sound check. Standing by. Check. Okay. It's severely delayed. More delayed than usual, but it's sounding good. Welcome, friends. Hello. Welcome to the Zeppoverse. A special presentation of the almost daily variety gaming live stream show extravaganza. Please give yourself a self-guided tour of the many dimensions of the Zeppoverse by heading on over to solo.to/Mr. Zeppo. You can check out the original archive of ancient art, musings and writings, ideas as originally captured, audio transcripts of ancient notes, and other hints and pins on the corkboard. As well as the sample chapters available over there on the Wattpad platform, where you can read along the many adventures of DJ Zed and Mr. Zeppo when it starts dropping. We're broadcasting live at you right now, friends. Welcome. I'm paranoid that everything sounds weird, but it sounded fine. It's just weirdly not peaking the way it used to, but I think it's because I put the cool new cover on it. Hello. Welcome, friends. I am your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, and this is the Zeppoverse Literary World Building Project. Project Reboot Episode 0. We're kind of starting over from scratch. I needed to cleanse the brain pan and purge myself from some creative blocks and some preoccupations about other things. And I guess go into Zen mode to try to identify blockages and attachments. But I digress. We're back. We're back from what? A little tiny hiatus where I didn't stream at all, although I still dabbling with social media. I never can put that phone down. At any rate, here we are. DJ Zed in the background, thank you so much. Boop. You can stop right there. Let's clear you out and find some other music for a little bit later. So, friends, what's going on? Hello. We've got a couple of viewers over there on the Twitch platform. Let's go take TikTok roll call real quick to see if anybody's dropped in on TikTok, and then we will revamp, re-hype, reintroduce this mind-boggling project of way too many projects that you've just stumbled into. In the meanwhile, please don't be shy. Say hello and start engaging. This show is all about audience engagement. Even if we do veer off tangent and start playing video games, and we will do that. Although it'll be not so much the central focus as it used to be, I don't think. Ramiro, thank you for joining over there on the TikTok live. We've had 2 total viewers, but only Ramiro's name is coming up. This is the only way I can engage with people's names. I've tried before trying to monitor my TikTok live feed by watching it or engaging with the behind-the-scenes stuff in my device, and it doesn't want to do like a secondary monitoring device duty. So if I want to see who's Sinbabe2, thank you for dropping in. Hello, Sinbabe2. If I want to see who's actually doing that and say hello and catch you in real time the way TikTokers on live often do, I gotta tab all the way over here and do stuff. But oftentimes we're on other pages, and especially here for this modality, if we're working on original action, adventure, sci-fi, literary world-building, performative, meta-collaborative writing, it's hard for me to keep an eye on. Sinbabe2, though, most recent viewer to drop in, and now top viewer. I don't know how it decides that, but thanks. And there you go. A little acknowledgement. Thanks for being here. That's the backside of Twitch. We've settled into a nice solid green line at 4,420 kilobytes per second. Coming to you live. I'm weird. I'm wild. I'm wonky. I am not your usual live streamer. And yes, sometimes I spend eons just playing games. You can ignore those if you're not into gaming content. Dial in for these episodes, which I'm now trying to force myself to do at least one, even if it's short, every day, before moving on to other stuff. And this is the global channel-wide reboot, relaunch, revamp of it's the wrong slideshow, but let's go. Oh yeah, it's because I didn't do this sequence. I gotta reorganize this folder so it's got doodle dads that make more sense. The Zeppoverse literary world building project. What the F am I talking about? Why have I said it so many times? Because this and every one of my live streams / podcast episodes / anything else you might see me doing content is real, raw, and ridiculously, I used to say radically, but I'm really worried that word is going to be like one of those red flag words now, so I'm not going to use it anymore. Radically unscripted. Don't sit and write. No one else writes scripts for me. If I do get into sketch comedy stuff, you're going to watch me write it here, live on stream, before I turn it into the sketch comedy content it might turn into. You know what I'm saying? So, we are going to, in a very real, raw, and ridiculously unscripted way, experimentally engage in multiple activities not the least of which I'm surprised it hasn't been controversial enough to get me noticed and to get me like the audience, but I haven't leaned into it, and I've been doing too much gaming and not enough of this. I gotta balance them out so it's a nice Caesar salad mix and no one feels overwhelmed by either. I'm trying to draw in audiences from people who like books, people who like games, people who like pop culture, people who like movies, people who like current events and public discourse. So everybody, I guess. I mean, there's people who don't like these things, especially not on the internet. So bless their hearts. But I'm trying to reach as many people as possible, not to endorse any kind of personal ideological belief system, but rather to share my experimental, creative, and slightly ridiculous sci-fi action adventure fan fiction hybrid novelization writing process and development. And of course, we'll mix it up with other things. I'm still getting the recipe right, but with your participation, with your engagement, with your feedback, we'll narrow it down to like best practices. Okay, so what's going on? I'm an aspiring novelist. I could introduce myself so many other ways. I am a former professionally trained carpenter. Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. I would say theatrical technician and scenic carpenter. I could say that. I wouldn't say carpenter. I couldn't like build a house. I could build a fake facade that looks like a house. It's really weird. Those are very different things. Fun story. This is totally random. Fun story. And I'm not talking trash. I say this with absolute love and admiration. I once wandered into, as a volunteer, friend of a friend of a friend, who didn't know what he was getting himself into a small storefront theatrical company's like post-show run strike, and not like, you know, and I mean that in the theatrical sense, not like when you don't go to your job, but like when you go to your venue where you performed, you take down all the stuff that you put up for the show. So don't get it twisted. Don't get it misunderstood. Although, pin on corkboard, we'll have to do a whole talk show, a whole podcast episode about the upcoming series of events in that department. Anyways, this all makes sense eventually. I once wandered into this small, intimate, cozy, but very full of potential, like what we used to call a black box or multi-purpose storefront theater. And they were about to tear down their set. They were just getting started. That was like kind of sort of just a minute and a half late, I think. Or maybe they were already halfway. But they were struggling a bit with certain major portions of the walls that had been set up. Now, for context, for anyone who doesn't know, in live theater, when you build a wall or a room or any kind of setting, you build what are called flats, even if you build a whole complicated room or massive scenario, they're comprised of things that aren't really what they look like and are made to be as thin and as light and as easy to build and as easy to take apart as possible. And what I assessed rather quickly, just walking in, having already at that moment spent a good 2 decades either studying or working in the industry of live theater, both as a performer and as a technician, like I immediately realized that whoever had put this up, and I had seen the show, which is why I'd ended up volunteering, because I ended up hanging out and chatting and stuff. I'd seen this show, and it looked lovely. The setting was awesome, and it functionally worked really well. But just one peek backstage, having come back to help them tear it apart, and they were openly all already like, "Why is this so hard to take apart?" Because there were plenty of people who had been to a scenic, strike or there's various terms for it, but they'd done it before, like in school and stuff, as had I. But they hadn't really put the two and two together yet. Like, this set had been built like it was built by a construction crew building an actual house, which is not how you build a set. So it was proving to be exceptionally difficult to take apart. I don't know why that memory just dropped into my head, but depending on the corkboard, there's a method to my madness. I'm going to have to remember that for some future reference as like a story to have someone tell. So make a clip of that eclipse going all the way back to the beginning of that story, please. Thank you. Anyways, I've already trashed my voice. God, I'm a terrible professionally trained voice actor that never ever does his warm up and is always like smoking cigarettes right before going live without taking the time to like what is the world building project? I'm an aspiring novelist, former theater professional with much experience both at the regional level and at the national level and at the international level, whose for various reasons life has turned roller coaster style, country song style into something entirely else, and is now, for better or worse, making the best out of a weird situation and attempting to find that audience that will actually want to be like the alpha readers of what I hope, what I think, what I aspire to make into being an interesting, fascinating, thought-provoking, weird, wild, wacky, bizarre, absurd, sci-fi action adventure with a big splash of fan fiction, world of crossover worlds where we enjoy weird references to various video games and movies that in theory we all love in common, but that are also part of an innovative and original story set in a world that I'm trying to define for myself. A fictional world, a universe. A universe that we shall call, for various reasons, and not the least of which the most obvious, the Zeppoverse. A universe in which a character that we call the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo finds himself stranded on a planet populated by a species of ambulatory flesh bags descended from hyper-intelligent simians and other life forms, because all life has a singular common ancestor, and who's been stranded here following a do not interrupt, do not intercede, do not interfere kind of protocol. Pin on the corkboard. Do a Star Trek homage references, but I don't want to get out of hand. And of course I'm embarrassed because right now I'm having one of those error code file not found moments. Prime directive. There we go. And it's finally sort of just getting to him. But let's recap. Let's do a little previously on. I'm going to give myself, my voice, a quick moment of rest. And I'm going to invite you to, as soon as I find it here, join me in viewing and revisiting some highlights from the last, I think, really good episode that I did that was sort of like, yep, okay, I think I've figured out some of the magic personal ingredients for myself that I need to invoke. Videos. Where is it? Where is it? What order is it in? Are they in the right order? Nope. That one's the really long one. That's the one we just did. Where's the one that I just saved that I wanted to show off? What? No, not that. Not that. Oh, good grief. I just did a thing and now I don't know where it is. Because this does not feel like the stuff that I... Well, I guess I can just go to my TikTok instead. Because I saw them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Let's revisit this. One moment, please. Okay. Please. Oh, I want to listen. I want to watch that dude's thing, but we're not here to look at that. We're here to watch this one. Stop! Stop! Back it up. Okay, I think it's this one. Let's really slap on. Of course, it's all coiled up and tangled. For anyone who's like, what the F is going on? I am an aspiring novelist, and I'm trying to performatively utilize this self-commodification live stream format to try and bypass my writer's block, which I've been suffering for quite some time. Oh, that's right. This is the headset I actually needed to replace. Oh, good grief. I just had a whole headset drama in my gaming episodes, which I won't recap here. Okay, DJ said, cut it out. Thanks. Let's go here and see if this plays correctly. Oh, wait, no. I've got to activate enable audio. Boop. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm looking at the right thing that I want to be looking at. All right, forgive the quadruple logos on this image here. Let me hide the logos image. The other ones are already in that thing. Okay, here we go. There's the really real, actual, real world, metaphysical history of Zerth, which is to be considered... Okay, Zerth is the name of the planet, and it's Earth with the letter Z in front of it. Silly, but this is, quite literally, absurdism. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a form of literature and theater that is inherently absurd on purpose. And I can give you all kinds of examples, and we can explore that side of things if you'd like. But so Zerth, right? Imagine a parallel universe very similar to your own. Let's let this video that I picked here explain some stuff so we can revisit it and kind of give context to anyone watching. And then move on to some other things that we'll want to get into today, specifically. Very similar and very equivalent to the real world history of the actual planet Earth, which you should be familiar with, dear audiences. And if you're not, go get a history book. Go to your local library, please. Because there are dangerous echoes of history rampaging about right now. We'll put a pin on the corkboard about that. So Mr. Zeppo believes himself to be living through
I'm debating as to whether or not he will have had actually lived through the real physical history of Zerth or not. It's supposed to be a bit of a, wait, what's going on? Mystery. In part because in my own brain, when I think about it, my brain goes, wait, what's going on? This is a bit of a mystery. Clip that, Eclipse. But I digress. Objectively speaking, as far as the setting of the Zeppoverse book series of many book series is concerned, there was a physical reality in which there was a galaxy just like your own, in which one could find a planet almost identical to yours, on which evolved living, carbon-based, blood and bone, gooey life forms, and from that arose a species of ambulatory talking meat sacks almost identical to your own human. What he doesn't know is that all of that is a simulation of that history. He's not actually on the real planet Zerth. And this may be something I'm deciding in real time. So let's make a clip of this, Eclipse. He wasn't on Zerth. He just believes himself to have been living on planet Zerth this entire time. And as he realizes, oh my God, these talking chimps want to build planet-destroying spaceships, take their brains out of their bodies, put them in jars, and then send those ships out to colonize other planets. The intention being that once they arrived and harvested enough. What he doesn't know is that all the sample chapters, I forget which book I've shoved it in, but it's technically a scene from its own book, but it gets referenced in another book, where he meets the writer and tries to recruit him. And when he meets the writer and tries to recruit him, he presents the writer with the book about the writer's life, wherein the person that we are introduced to that is the writer is like, what the fuck is this? Because he's never read like a sci-fi action adventure book. Even though there are objects called books, they all serve a completely different purpose. And there's no literature. So like he doesn't understand, how is there a action adventure sci-fi book series about him? But the sample chapters, I forget.
Okay. So, new posts and stuff will be dropping over there. I did not mean to get redundant. Where are we? Okay. Let's go like this. I wanted to play those just to sort of give a little bit of context. But I have to admit, there is too much going on. I'm trying to present my, as is the weird and surreal, impossible coincidence. Every time I go live, I suddenly get a moment somewhere randomly throughout the course of the experience where I struggle with either the hiccups or the burps or a traffic jam of hiccups and burps at the same goddamn time. And it always throws me off. What the F was I just saying? Clip that, Eclipse. Share that because it's awkward and funny. Back to business. I don't need this on my head because it'll give me a headache. So context, there's way too much going on. Action, adventure, sci-fi, rom-com, genre, mix and match, mashup, fan fiction, book series of many nested, self-fractally referential book series in 3 parts. Everything is something that comes in 3 sets of 3. and what we're going to focus on today, because there's so many things going on that it's impossible. One of the problems, one of the many levels of creative blockage that I suffer from is that I know that when it comes to trying to attack and dismantle and reorganize and rearrange and then present the ideas that are trapped and sort of floating around and living in my head in like densely folded fractal holographic bundles of deeply immersive, hyper realistic memory like simulation experience, is that I never know where to begin. There's too many interesting storylines, there's too many characters, there's too many settings, there's too many. So sometimes I just can't even deal. But I think I'm stumbling my way into a more efficient version of my own proposed methodology for this little experimental project, which is to performatively self-commodify the act of me developing, implementing, and experimenting with a self-collaborative writing method. I desperately need actual collaborators. The way my brain works, the gifts I was given at birth, the training I received in my academic studies, I'm meant to collaborate. And I got no one to collaborate with for all kinds of reasons, not the least of which, most of them, my own fault, for not having made other choices and pursued other avenues. But here we are, regardless. Not judging that, just sharing it. Let's go ahead and just close that out. What are we looking at? Okay, good. Main camera. Right. Join me. I forget what we're doing. Real, raw, and ridiculously unscripted. Like, no, I don't have the time to write a script for a show where I'm going to present to you how I'm going to try to write a book. It doesn't make sense. So it's going to be real. It's going to be raw. It's going to be rough and tumble. But the point of it is to get to a point where we come full circle and the show becomes like a reading of the dramatic page, like a dramatic reading of the pages that are complete. So I got to start working that in because we do actually have fully complete, what I call like the alpha rough drafts of chapters from several of the books that comprise the way too many 3-part book series of multi 3-part books that are stuck in my head that need to come out. Let's do this thing. This is Streamlabs, the application I use to broadcast this to both platforms, and it is because of the deal that they've struck with TikTok Live that I can't be as instantly engaging with your names and stuff. So before we get into this other page, I should disclaimer, part of this process is to have conversations with artificial intelligence. I know, controversial to some, blasé and meaningless to others, and yay, he's one of us. Not necessarily, but, you know, exciting and thrilling and totally normal to others. But we'll come full circle and get meta about my own thoughts and my reasoning and my methodology here. Because it isn't... One thing that I feel confident in saying is that most of the time, for most people out there who don't know what they're watching and start watching some of my content, the assumptions that you might be making, 69 to 78% sure you're probably wrong. And I have a 98% track record. Where if like someone's like coming at me with things that I don't understand, I'm like, well, what assumptions have you made about me? They'll make them and I'll be like, yeah, well, none of those things are true or accurate or applicable in any way, shape, or form. So maybe reevaluate that, and then we can have a conversation. So I digress. But that's not what we were going for. I do have to disclaimer
my use of AI for the purposes of satisfying both platforms' requirements, that I allow you to understand that some of the content in this live stream is indeed generated by AI. But let me be clear. I am not AI. I am very real. I'm an actual person with real teeth. Now, I only say that to be weird and eccentric and bizarre, and also because I'm inspired by one of my favorite. Like if I magically could have the money to hire them, I would in a heartbeat if they would work with me. But I would also be like, let me work for you, because I'm very good at like subverting my own projects and devoting my time to doing stuff for other people with my ego way off to the side in Zen land, zenned out. But that's neither here nor there. Pin on the corkboard. That's got to be a piece of dialogue somewhere. Clip that, Eclipse. I'll sort it out later. Some of those little magic movie loops are not going to make any sense, but hopefully they'll be engaging. There's a TikTok creator, and I do not mean to infringe on them, but who I admire and look up to by the name of Ryan George, or maybe George Ryan, who is like the goofy urban dad equivalent to or someone who's doing the same sort of thing as Stanzi Potenza, who's just, they are both, to me, they are the two personally most engaging and hilarious and intellectually satisfying TikTok creators making whatever you call that genre of content. I don't know if there's a specific name, and I just, that's cool and hip and trendy and it's what everyone knows. Yeah, I know what you mean when you say it, but I don't know what it is. I would call it one-man TikTok sketch comedy. One person, one performer. That's clunky and lame and technical sounding, but like I would call it absurd, like some kind of TikTok sketch comedy. But if you don't know who those people are, you surely are at least familiar with the genre. And if you're not, it's the genre where one performer performs as many different characters with very minimal special effects or costumery. Sometimes hardly at all. And mind you, there's plenty of people that do this and plenty of people who do it really, really well. These two are just the ones that tickle my funny bone the most. And that like, and in a way that's like, oh my God, I wish that not only did I know them, not only do I wish I had the generational wealth and investment capital bankroll behind me to offer them work, but that they would also be like mutually intrigued and interested and like, should they, and I have not produced content in this genre, so they'd have to like meet me and play some improv games and like whatever, but that they would also be like, this dude's fun to work with, and not like whatever. So pin on the corkboard, man, that would be a dream come true to suddenly find myself in collabs with either and or both of them, to be honest. But who knows? They might not like my vibe. I think I would like their vibe. Thinking in terms of like if we were suddenly to find each other, either one of them, in a theater production, for example. But I digress. The point is, I don't know the name of that style or genre. I don't know if there's some hip, cool name that it is called. But I'm going. That's one of the subset like MacGuffins in the book series that I want to. If I want to reference sketch video loops made by the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo in that style, but I haven't made them yet. But regardless, I'm gonna set them in the past as if it's something that he had been doing. Not to disrespect anybody who innovated that format. I've always wanted to be able to do stand-up comedy with myself.
I've always wanted to be in like a one-man show. I always base essentially, effectively, and this is on the corkboard important for anyone who doesn't know. If there's anything else you need to know about the character, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, it is the following. Dramatic pause. This is a cliffhanger. Clip that, Eclipse. We'll see if that works. The incorrigible Mr. Zeppo has the superpower ability of magically making manifest an infinite array of iterative and progressively weirder and or progressively more serious or progressively something or another variant meta-universal pseudo-clones of himself. They're not clones. He's not engaging in the, quote, cloning process. He can just be like, boop, 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 boop. I have 10 of me. Let's go. But they're also they're variants. So, like, sort of like in the comic book style of, like, they would have slightly different characteristics, right? But they're also, like, hive mind, one person. Clip that, Eclipse. And he uses it for reasons that would, for many people in the fictional setting of my book series, seem problematic and or nefarious, but he's a benign agent of chaos that sort of derailed himself from his programming. Okay, but so today what we're going to do, or we're going to focus on today specifically, if I don't trash my voice, is a conversation with ChatGPT about facts, historical facts about reality here on your planet Earth, so that I can have a reservoir of references to mix into the ingredient pile when we play with anything that happened in the real world, and I do have air quotes around that. Please reference the clips we played earlier in this episode if you missed them and you're watching this in the future, or you can now rewind and watch it from the beginning. Although I don't think you can. You have to wait until it is a VOD. You can't rewind now if you're watching right now. I digress. But like I said, before that, we're going to do TikTok roll call real quick. So here we go. To everybody who's been dropping in on TikTok, I can't engage with you as immediately as others because A, I ramble and I'm not looking at that screen, and B, that screen is right here. Panchito, Tyrone, Tay Chang, Nicole Elaine, I couldn't read that, Paul Huin, Seduli something, and a name I cannot pronounce because it's in a language I do not recognize. I apologize. Hello and welcome. Thank you for dropping by. This is a fictional literary development self-commodification live stream show extravaganza. And I thank you for your viewership from wherever you may have dropped in. We got 31 viewers that have come by. We will be, disclaimer moment. Forgive me for having to do this, but this is the portion that is AI. I am not AI, but this page is the page for literally ChatGPT run by OpenAI. It's the free version. I'm not endorsing them. I'm very concerned about the serious problematic issues involved with using AI. And also, I'm also out to try to help it learn how to be a better, more useful, less toxic tool. Because what are you going to do? Right? They're already shoving AI into everything without necessarily hearing out our concerns. And I figure if the robots are coming, why not at least talk to them on their level? The robots, I mean, not the people trying to profiteer on them. But that's a whole long, complicated theme in my book series, as well as in my own concerns and philosophical worldview. So clip that eclipse, and we'll just have to put that up as a pin on the cork board for now. We'll come back and reference that idea again in the not too distant future. Oh, and I'll have to explain the cork board, but that's a whole nother in a minute. So disclaimer, that is AI. I am not. And I do not consent to any platform or anyone else using my likeness or my voice to create AI that I have not authorized, AI chatbots or AI agents or AI talking bobbleheads, to do anything that I am not unaware of, because I know that some places are out there. But just putting it out there, it's on the record. I've said it on this episode, and I'll try to remember to say it on future episodes again. Okay, but having said that, there was something else I wanted to say before moving forward, but I guess no. Let's get into it. I'm gonna, to save my own vocal cords, I'm going to have my Macintosh desktop. I like Macintosh so much more than iMac, but my iMac desktop accessibility text-to-voice reader read the prompt that I worked on earlier. I would have been live sooner, but I wanted to write this first. Actually, I think I hadn't bathed yet, so I wasn't I was doing this in my jammies. But here we go. Let's take a listen to this prompt. I already kind of don't remember how it goes, so
For this particular conversation, please tell me if the following is possible. Can you give me a thorough recap of important historical events from the specific historical decades that I will ask about? Also, I will first ask for items limited in scope to just the United States. Then I will ask for items from the rest of the globe. I would like to request that you respond only with historically accurate and verifiable factual information from real world, reliable, and verifiable sources. Please and thank you. I would like to utilize the resulting information that you provide for reference as I work on developing my historical fiction world setting and backstory elements for my Zeppoverse book series. The goal is to be able to cite and integrate settings, personages, events, and historic facts and figures and real-world historical events in order to infuse the science fiction and action-adventure elements with solid real-world grounding and context. So this conversation will be where I will ask you to create decade recap reports for me so that I can have a deep and wide reservoir of factual information available according to the specific decades I want to focus on. I am interested in both major well-known items and obscure not so well-known items. Please try to utilize your max output for each of the decade that I ask you to generate a decade recap report for. Please. Your replies can be condensed bullet point outline form, with extended details for any obscure items that would benefit having more context, or for unique and unusual items worth highlighting. By the way, what is your maximum output character and word limit per question?
clip that eclipse and tune in to find out what ChatGPT says. And the most recent Zeppoverse world-building project of error code 404. Hi, friends. I am not a robot. Okay. There is a methodology to my madness, and a madness to my methodology. Let's now listen to what ChatGPT had to say to that prompt. I basically was asking it if it would be able to respond to me with a report recapping important, major, and curious, weird, obscure historical events, facts, figures, and persons from specific decades. Because I'd like to select a decade, cultivate some references, some real world references to ground the world building for scenes or chapters or a story or something set in that decade, And I'm no historian, right? I don't pretend to be an expert in history. I consider myself reasonably somewhat generally informed. I'm not going to put the word well in that. Because for the decades I was around to observe, I was always engaged and curious and interested, right, in current events and the journalism about it. Being on the corkboard, I know that there's people that come at me with stuff about the fake news. I get it. This ain't my first rodeo, friend. Clip that, he clips. The character, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, is a robot from a parallax dimension that's been stranded here amongst humans for millennia, for untold amounts of time. Perhaps forgotten, like he doesn't remember. Sometimes he makes it sound like it's only been a little short time. Sometimes he makes it sound like he's been here since the dawn of time. Okay, so there's a follow-up before I get too far ahead of myself. There's a follow-up question that I thought of, and I want to make sure to ask it if I can get my notepad was closed. Let me also revisit where we are over here. I'm going to go ahead and hide the camera for a second because we're going to listen to the... Well, let's listen to it, and then we'll get the... what's the follow-up question? Not that follow-up question, this follow-up question. But let's listen to this. Let's listen to the answer she provided. I have gendered her voice because it's the most appealing to my ear. I chose this voice for ChatGPT. Okay, here we go.
Yes, absolutely possible. I can create thorough citation-backed decade recap reports for any decades you request, first limited to the United States, then for the rest of the globe, with a format and depth tuned to your needs for historically grounded historical fiction world building in the Zeppoverse. Below is exactly how I'll do it and what you can expect. What I'll deliver for each decade recap report. Each report will be a focused, verifiable, source-backed compendium of events, figures, trends, and oddities from that decade. Typical structure: 1 quick snapshot, 2 to 4 bullets, major political events, wars, conflicts, economic status, population trend. 2, top 10-15 major events and turning points, bullet list, each with a 1-3 sentence factual description and date S. Important people, leaders, influencers, scientists, cultural figures, name, role, why they matter that decade, 1-sentence citation note. 4, social, cultural, intellectual trends, movements, art, literature, religion, demographics, everyday life changes. 5, science, technology and industry developments, inventions, industry shifts, infrastructural projects, patents or institutions. 6, law, government and policy, domestic for US reports, landmark legislation, Supreme Court rulings, regulatory shifts. 7, foreign policy and international context, for US reports, treaties, wars, diplomatic milestones affecting the decade. 8, obscure underreported items, extended detail. 3 to 8 items given extra context. These are gold for fiction, local incidents, forgotten scandals, innovations, minor movements, indigenous affairs, regional uprisings, niche tech. 9, primary sources and recommended secondary sources, citations. For every report, I'll include verifiable, reliable sources, archival materials, reputable academic books, articles, major newspapers, government documents, university presses, prominent historians. Per your request, I will respond only using historically accurate, verifiable information and will cite sources. 10, quick ideas for how to fictionally weave each item into a Zeppoverse scene or character. Optional brief suggestions. Sources and citation rules I'll follow. I will use reputable, verifiable sources. Government archives, e.g. Library of Congress, National Archives, major newspapers, contemporary reporting, peer-reviewed scholarship, university press books, reputable history sites, e.g. Oxford Univ Press, Britannica, Britannic JSTOR items where accessible. When I produce a report, I will cite the 5 most load-bearing statements per web.run decision boundary and include additional supportive citations for obscure items as needed. If you later ask for direct quotes or long verbatim passages from a source, I'll respect copyright limits, short excerpts only, and instead paraphrase and cite. Level of detailed length. I can make each decade recap anywhere from a concise 500 to 800 word summary to an extensive 2,000 to 4,000 plus word deep report with expanded obscure item context. Practical recommendation: for heavy world building, a 1,100 to 3,000 word report strikes a strong balance, lots of bullets plus several expanded obscure items. If you want extremely exhaustive archival lists, we can do multi-part installments. What I'll need from you: one time simple. Which decade do you want first, e.g. 1910s United States or 1960s global, excluding US? You can give as many decades as you like. I'll produce them one at a time in the order you request. About technical limits, your question, maximum output character, word limit. I don't have a fixed word cap. I can promise precisely because platform message lengths are token-based and vary by deployment. Practically speaking, I can produce long, detailed replies that comfortably contain several thousand words, hundreds of bullets, and many citations in a single reply. If you request exceptionally exhaustive compilations, e.g. full annotated bibliographies plus primary source excerpts plus 10,000 plus words, I'll provide a very long reply but may split naturally into clearly labelled parts within the same response for readability. If you have a hard target, word count, or character limit, tell me that and I'll conform to it for each decade recap. Workflow and turnaround, how I'll work. When you name a decade, US first, I will 1. Compile a prioritized list of major events for that decade. 2. Gather reputable sources and fact-check dates details. 3. Produce the decade recap in the format above, with inline citations and a short bibliography of primary-secondary sources. You will receive a finished, citation-backed report in my next reply. I will perform the work immediately when you pick a decade. If that sounds good, tell me the first decade you want me to build, and whether you want the United States or global version first. Ready when you are. Pick a decade and I'll run with it.
Okay. So I had not let me say that again. I had not read and or listened to that response yet. And there's a reason why I included the questions about, or the certain words, and I formulated the prompt the way I did for a reason, which was to give ourselves an opportunity to explore its capacities, right? You hear a lot about, oh, hello. Oh, no, that's a platform violation, obvious, just a chat bot with invalid sales solicitation. I got excited because I saw some chat in the thing. I need that. There's a clip I have. I don't have it. It gets exhausting when all the chats that I see, I get excited when there's a new chat in the chat thing, and then it's always just by your audience. And it's like, oh, that's a term of service violation that would, if I engaged doing business with that, would probably get me kicked off the platform. That's all I ever get. We're the real people. What the F were we talking about? Oh. I formulated the prompt that we just heard the response to, to see what and how it would outline its compliance abilities. Like, what would it say about its abilities to do that, and to do it with real, trustworthy, verifiable, citable, referenced sourcing, or sources and references, or whatever the right language. My brain's getting all wonky. Vocabulary files not found.
So, I mean, I'm really intrigued. I said that. I mean, but the point being there that I'm really intrigued by what specifics it brought out. Like, even like name checking the Library of Congress and whatnot. So, multiple ideas for what we're going to be doing next. Multiple questions that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. One, is it going to hallucinate? Right? Because I keep hearing, as I started to say earlier, a hot second ago, keep hearing and or reading or seeing or watching people's TikTok videos about them hearing or seeing articles and stories and or examples or anecdotes about chat LLMs, chat large language models, hallucinating, answering questions with AI delusions and or straight up like not telling the truth. So we're going to see how it behaves and or misbehaves. We're going to try and keep an eye. Now, obviously, I'm not a historian, and neither will be most of the people watching. Although, hey, if any historians catch wind of these sessions, please come on through, say hello, and drop your thoughts and opinions. So, okay, to recap, we're going to have a conversation with ChatGPT right now where it's going to give us these decade recap reports. I'm kind of still debating in the back of my head which decade I want to start with. Also, we're gonna keep an eye on whether or not we find any really weird, glaring, totally made up things, but that will require some due diligence and fact checking, right? But we will be coming back to these decade reports later when we sit down to, say, for example, write a short story set in that decade that is part of the mystery of what the characters that are trying to stop our misunderstood and arguably like falsely accused and framed main character, Mr. Zeppo. So there's people trying to figure out what he's all about and what he's doing. And I have not explained what he is all about and what he's doing yet. So don't worry if you are like lost and confused. We'll get to it. So, okay. The follow-up question, right? That's what I've been sitting here trying to let's vamp until I remember what I said I was going to go sideways about. The follow-up question was, can you please create a bibliographical listing of this source materials? Your response to this conversation, please, and thank you. It already knows to do that in this conversation, so I'm not going to use that for that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut it over here. I'm going to put it in its own little note so I can find it easier. Otherwise, it'll get lost. And I'm going to we are as a show where's the button I'm looking for? There we go. You may or may not have noticed, dear viewers, if you're following along over here. Am I on the webcam or am I on the, jump through the infinity desktop portal with me again. Let's turn on our little mini cam here for this time. Never mind the main body. I wish I could expand this a little bit. The incorrigible Mr. Zeppo is my social media handle on all platforms. In part because I've always wanted to write these books and I've always wanted to utilize my social media as a working MacGuffin of I was the character here on social media in this decade. So now we're going to go back to decades that I didn't live through, that I am not familiar with, to get a nice, interesting, useful, hopefully not riddled with made up, imaginary, hallucinatory AI lies, so that I can readily reference and connect dots and sort of weave my storytelling in a world that will resemble our own, but just has this other heightened layer on top of it. It'll start to make sense eventually. But also, all of these conversations I've been having for a really long time, we're going to be revisiting. Each of these are different ideas, themes, subject matters, attempts at experimenting and learning how to use ChatGPT, and or, I guess, some other way to put it, ingredients that will have different values and or significance. And we're going to keep having new conversations out here. But then we're going to get over here to this project at the top, and we're going to actually write like the first Zeppoverse book up here. But I digress. What I was contemplating doing was dropping that question in some previous conversation that I don't remember anything about. Film noir features. Schrodinger's. What is black hole portals? Did I have a series? We got into fictional stuff. Tried asking it to write fictional things. But we started here with describe the science of black hole portals. And then we just asked it to tell me the science of black holes. Let's drop in this new. Can you please create a bit of your searches for your responses about. Well, let's just leave it in this generic form and see what it does real quick. I'll come back to that, though. Oh, it made a choice. Ooh, it made a choice. I just caught the first sentence. I almost didn't look at it. I was about to scroll up and click away and go back to the main conversation. It made a choice, and it has made up stuff. Okay, so I asked it, can you please create... This is a thing I'm just going to bring into other conversations as I revisit them to update them and to incorporate them into the working memory of this newest version of ChatGPT, which I'm using in free mode, which means I have limited submissions per day. Luckily, if I burn through the ones for the newest version, it can roll back to the previous version, and I can just keep going. And I think they're all backwards compatible and will eventually sort of all percolate up into whatever the next newest version of ChatGPT might become. And there is a long-term theoretical trajectory for me as like a put a pin on the corkboard. I'm sort of conducting a little long-term AI experiment of my own, which is a storyline in my book series. But I want to actually do some of it in real life with at least this, if not other AIs. Let's listen to what she responded to. So again, to recap for you, dear audience, in this conversation, which I don't remember how long ago it was, and I don't know if they update and rotate up or not as we add new stuff, so I don't know if this is a hard list in chronological order or not. I don't remember. But it's labeled black hole portals, and I asked it, describe for me the science of black hole portals. Actually, let's go back to the beginning of this conversation, because this is interesting. Not the conversation we started off, but we're going to do this anyways. My very first question to this however long ago we had it. I don't even remember. It doesn't have a timestamp, which is interesting choice. But I asked it, let's have the desktop reader do it, so it sounds like they're having a conversation between two AI bots.
Describe the science of black hole portals.
I'm sorry, but there is no such thing as black hole portals in the field of science. Black holes are extremely dense objects that form when a massive star collapses in on itself. They have an intense gravitational pull, which means that anything that gets too close to them, including light, cannot escape. This phenomenon is known as the event horizon. There is no evidence to suggest that black holes have any kind of portal or gateway that leads to another location or dimension. While some theories suggest that black holes may be a pathway to another universe or a wormhole, these are purely speculative and have not been proven. It's important to remember that while science can offer explanations for many phenomena, there are still many unknowns and mysteries in the universe. As we continue to explore and learn more, we may discover new phenomena that challenge our current understanding of the universe.
Clip that, Eclipse. I like the way it formulates its responses in general. I just find them interesting constantly. And I'm intrigued by its broad scope of apparent informational knowledge. I hesitate to use the word knowledge because I often will comment on other people's posts when they're having conversations with chat AIs of some other kinds. And I'm like, you do realize they don't know anything, right? Like they're responding to the words using language models to probabilistically generate content. And some people don't agree or don't understand what that even means. Okay, so this is the next thing that I asked it.
Tell me about the science of black holes.
Certainly. Black holes are fascinating objects that have captured the imagination of scientists and the public alike. Here are some basic concepts in the science of black holes. Formation. Black holes form when a massive star exhausts its fuel and collapses under its own gravity. The collapse causes the star to become extremely dense, with all its mass compressed into a single point called a singularity. Gravity. Black holes have an intense gravitational pull due to their extreme density. Anything that gets too close to a black hole, including light, will be pulled in and unable to escape. This is known as the event horizon, which is the point of no return for anything falling into a black hole. Types of black holes. There are three main types of black holes: stellar black holes, intermediate black holes, and supermassive black holes. Stellar black holes are the most common and form from the collapse of massive stars. Intermediate black holes have masses between 100 and 100,000 times that of the Sun, while supermassive black holes can have masses millions or billions of times that of the Sun. Effects on surrounding matter. As matter falls into a black hole, it forms an accretion disk around the black hole, which can emit intense radiation. Black holes can also cause gravitational lensing, which is the bending of light around the black hole due to its gravity. Theoretical physics. Black holes have played an important role in theoretical physics, particularly in the study of general relativity and the search for a theory of quantum gravity. Black holes have also been proposed as a potential source of dark matter, which is a mysterious substance that makes up a significant portion of the universe's mass. There is still much to be discovered about black holes, and scientists continue to study them to unlock their secrets and expand our understanding of the universe.
Okay, So for the next several questions, and we're not going to go through them right now, we started discussing things in terms of fiction. The rest of this is like helping develop fiction that is centered in ideas about black holes. And I kind of forgot about that until we came back here and asked it this. I thought there was a whole long discussion about actual black hole science, but we got into sci-fi, black hole portals, and whatnot. So then I asked it so this is the newest thing that we just did to experiment with just now about the bibliography. And here's what it said.
Because the content in this conversation about black hole portals, the Animo, third eye societies and the metaphysics of consciousness is fictional, imaginative and speculative, there are no external bibliographical source materials or real-world references that directly informed my responses. However, the ideas draw inspiration from a mix of well-known scientific theories, philosophical works and cultural concepts that can be cited as conceptual influences, not as literal sources. Here's a bibliographical style list for context. Conceptual and theoretical inspirations, Astrophysics and Cosmology, Hawking, Stephen, A Brief History of Time, Bantam Books, 1988. Penrose, Roger, The Road to Reality, A Complete Guide to the Laws of the Universe, Vintage Books, 2004. Green, Brian, The Elegant Universe, Superstrings, Hidden Dimensions, and the Quest for the Ultimate Theory, W. Norton, 1999. Thorne, Kip S. Black Holes and Time Warps, Einstein's Outrageous Legacy, W. W. Norton, 1994. Quantum Physics and Consciousness, Schrödinger Irwin, What is Life? The Physical Aspect of the Living Cell, Cambridge University Press, 1944. Schrödinger Irwin, Mind and Matter, Cambridge University Press, 1958. Bohm, David, Wholeness and the Implicate Order, Routledge, 1980. Wigner, Eugene, Remarks on the Mind-Body Question, Symmetries and Reflections, right, Indiana University Press, 1967. Philosophy and Transcendentalism, Emerson, Ralph Waldo. Nature, 1836. Thoreau, Henry David, Walden, 1854. Ken Wilber, The Spectrum of Consciousness, Quest Books, 1977. Mysticism, Metaphysics and the Third Eye, Blavatsky, Helena P. The Secret Doctrine, Theosophical Publishing, 1888. Bailey, Alice A., A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, Lucis Publishing, 1925. Jung, Carl G., Psychology and Alchemy, Princeton University Press, 1968. Eliade Mercier, Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, Princeton University Press, 1964. Science Fiction and Comic Book Influences, Kirby, Jack and Stan Lee, The Eternals, Marvel Comics, 1976 to 1978. Morrison, Grant, The Invisibles, DC Vertigo Comics, 1994 to 2000. Moore, Allen, Promethea, DC ABC Comics, 1999 to 2005. Clark, Arthur C., 2001, A Space Odyssey, New American Library, 1968. Herbert, Frank, Dune, Chilton Books, 1965. Would you like me to create a fictional in-universe bibliography for this setting as well, written as if it came from within the comic book universe itself, e.g., the Codex of the Third Eye, or the Animal Treatise on Cosmic Recursion? That would fit perfectly with your world-building style.
Okay. So I'm fascinated the way it first informed me that the majority of the content of these conversations was fiction, which is, of course, what I'm trying to do, is like generate. I'm asking it to help me with ideas I've already had, so that I can have, as if I had a collaborator, so that I can take them away and reintegrate them into what I'm developing and shred them and rebuild them and put them through my own patent pending collaborative meta development process. So I'm intrigued that it was able to be like, hey, there are no bibliographies I can pull. There's no references I can pull for what we talked about up there, because most of it was nonsense. But here's, things that can be cited as real world inspirational sources for the kinds of things that we were inventing nonsensical ideas about in this conversation. which is cool and useful, right? So it prompts the idea that one of the things I should probably do is put in the time and effort in this and any other conversation where I ask it to do that, to go through each of those things and be like, is that actually a book? Like, there are plenty of names in that list that sounded familiar, especially in the transcendental and spiritual departments. To me, familiar. But could I say, oh, I happen to own a copy of that, and I can assert to you that it's at least listing a real reference? No, I can't. Not with any of them, I don't think. But what will be fun and interesting, whether it's in this conversation about black holes and whatever fictional things we already started sketching ideas on, is to go through and be like, okay, first of all, go and, like, on a different platform, look up the book, be like, okay, there's a book. It's the title, the date, the author, the publisher, they match. Then to come back, having confirmed that, and be like, hey, for the purposes of this conversation and future development of the ideas and the fictional stuff that we have been talking about in this conversation, can you please give me a book report on this book? Ooh, that sounds fun. I was going to focus on this historical decades report thing, but at least I didn't put that in the title. I totally want to do that with one of those books now that we've outlined this idea. But also, I want to make a pin on the corkboard for myself and for others. So clip that eclipse, that we're going to be revisiting that idea here in the not too distant future. And in these conversations with ChatGPT, we're going to be confirming that the citation is searchable, findable, and verifiable, and then coming back to ChatGPT and be like, give me a book report on that. Especially if it's a book or a subject matter that I have no understanding of. And then we'll see what it comes up with and go and try to find summaries or references or other reviews of that book to be like, hey, spot on or delusional or somewhere in between or mostly accurate but with one little crazy exaggeration. Then we're going to come back again and ask it to help us integrate that information that it seems to know about from that book series, but inspire you to write fiction kind of way, not just steal it. But because I want to lean into the fact that I have a complete outsiders. Not a novice, because novice is a beginner in the form. I have a non-scientific deep fascination and appreciation for scientific subjects. Do not claim to be an expert. I am an aspiring sci-fi action adventure novelist. So we're going to try to work with the tools at our disposal to the best of our ability for the purposes of satisfying the collaborative. It's been a bit of a problem. I don't want to call it the collaboration problem, but for me, the collaboration problem is I've never really found someone that wants to collaborate for in all fair play. And it's not because, sort of like how when you're dating, you're looking for someone that's just going to make sense and be that match where you both just kind of go, yep, it makes sense, but this clicks. And if it's not that mutual thing, then you're not going to push it. At least if you're a decent human being. And dear man who might be wondering, I don't really know if I do that. Might really need to reevaluate some life choices, like the way you respect women and whatnot. But that's a whole subject matter that is pervasive and very relevant to the themes of my book series, but we're not going to get sidetracked on. Pin on the corkboard about that. So we're going to yes and what it responds with, but then also extrapolate and deconstruct it and reconstruct it. So I'm not just having it churn out slop and calling it my book. For anyone out there who may be like trying to come at me with that sort of criticism or trolling, the methodology here is definitely much more complicated and involved. In fact, like none of these conversations are to be considered finished product in any way, shape, or form. Okay, let's jump back through the portal. Which book to do this little experiment with? Hawking, A Brief History of Time, I think is a real book. I don't know for a fact that those are the actual the publisher and the date, but I've never heard of this Penrose Roger, The Road to Reality. Let's try looking that up. I'm just going to go to my search thingy. And here's where we can be like, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. This little portion of what's going on is AI. We're going to tip on over to AI mode. It's thinking. It's going to give us a little breakdown. Is my camera on or off? It's off. Let's turn it on so I can mug at the camera. What's up, friends? Okay, so according to Google, does it have a little voice reader so we can let it read it to us, to ourselves? No, but I guess we can highlight it. Here we go.
A vintage books paperback edition of Roger Penrose's The Road to Reality, A Complete Guide to the Laws of the Universe was published in 2007, not 2004, and is widely available from various booksellers. The original UK edition was published by Jonathan Cape in 2004, and other editions with different publication years exist.
Okay. So not wrong, but it wanted to correct the citation. Penrose Roger, The Road to Reality, A Complete Guide to the Laws of the Universe, Vintage Books, 2004. Huh. So is this evidence that the citation over in ChatGPT is inaccurate? Or is this evidence that the Google AI is got differing sources? How do I verify that? How does anyone living in this day and age, burdened with this issue, verify? Okay, let's go back to the normal. Let's go back to the shopping, I guess, tab. Now there's going to be tons of listings. There's a pre-owned one. No. But how do I find the one that's the one? Okay, so it's a real book. Roger Penrose, The Road to Reality, or at least it appears to be. You can get cynical and paranoid enough, dear friends, to be like, nope, none of this is real. Right? You can go to the library and find the book on the shelf and be like, this is fake, if you wanted to. But that's a whole issue. You need to make a podcast episode about that. But let's not get sidetracked. Okay, so that's interesting. Should I make it a separate conversation or just ask what I want to? Let's just ask it here. And then we're just going to plop in and we're going to spell check. we'll see what it says. Here's how let's have the question read out by my desktop thing.
Could you please provide me with a briefing or book report on the subject matter covered in Penrose, Roger, The Road to Reality, A Complete Guide to the Laws of the Universe, Vintage Books, 2004?
And it's thinking, it's apparently searching the Reb. Here's your detail. Okay, boom. It kind of does this weird new thing where it sort of, you know how like there's the three bubble, the little dots that when someone's responding to a text, it's sort of that equivalent. It's like, let me think. When I asked it the question about history and decade reports earlier today before we went on stream, it started with kind of wavy, invisible, like it's not the permanent text that it's gonna type out for you in a second. This weird like processing, like spinny wheel. Like let me think, and then it stepped through a couple of different interesting weird statements of its process. I wish I had captured those because they seem to vary. All right, oh wow, it's a big old breakdown. Oh wow. All right, we may or may not listen to the whole thing, but let's read this response. Listen.
Here is a detailed briefing book report on The Road to Reality, A Complete Guide to the Laws of the Universe by Roger Penrose, Vintage Books 2004. I'll cover its structure, main themes, strengths and weaknesses, and significance. 1. Book overview. The Road to Reality is a wide-ranging, ambitious work, 1,100 pages, in which Penrose attempts to give a complete guide to the mathematical and physical laws of the universe. Wikipedia. It begins with the foundations of mathematics, moves into geometry, field theory, quantum theory, cosmology, and ends with speculative frontier ideas about unification of physics. pt.wikipedia.org. Penrose's style is both pedagogical and polemical. He presents established physics and mathematics, and then offers his own views, sometimes controversial, on where current theory may be inadequate. old.ma.org. Structure and key content. Here is a rough breakdown of how the book is structured. Part 1, Mathematical Foundations. The early chapters, roughly the first 380 pages, cover numbers, complex numbers, real analysis, calculus, Fourier theory, manifold symmetry groups, fiber bundles, gauge connections, and the ladder of infinity, orders of infinity, Gödel, Turing machines, etc. d.wikipedia.org. The reasoning is, to understand the laws of physics deeply, one must first understand the mathematical tools used. This means the book is mathematically demanding and reaches into advanced mathematics. It is not a light popular science treatment. Reddit Part 2, Physics of Spacetime and Fields. The next section takes up geometry of spacetime, the Minkowski metric, fields in spacetime, classical electromagnetism, gravitation, and their Lagrangian Hamiltonian formulation. ProofWiki. Penrose then moves on to quantum particles, quantum algebra and spin, entanglement, the Dirac electron and antiparticles, the standard model of particle physics, and quantum field theory. ProofWiki Part 3, cosmology, speculative theories and unification. Later chapters deal with the Big Bang, thermodynamic legacy of cosmology, and speculative theories of early universe. old.may.org. Penrose then addresses issues such as the measurement problem in quantum mechanics, the possible role of gravity in quantum state reduction, his own views, and critiques of string theory. E-notes, toward the end, he presents views on loop quantum gravity, his own twistor theory, and asks, where lies the road to reality, i.e., how might we eventually arrive at a truly unified physical theory? ProofWiki. 3. Main themes and messages. A few of the major themes: mathematics as the bedrock of physical law. Penrose emphasizes that the deep laws of physics are expressed in mathematical language, geometry, topology, symmetry. He views the mathematical structure as more than just a tool. It has a kind of reality of its own. AndyRoss.net, Unity of Physics via Space-Time and Field Theory. Building from the mathematical tools, he shows how classical field theory, relativity, quantum theory emerge and how they relate. Quantum mechanics meets gravitation, the unification challenge. A recurring message is that while quantum mechanics and general relativity individually are powerful, their reconciliation remains elusive. Penrose argues that current approaches, especially string theory, may be flawed. E-notes, speculation and boldness in frontier physics. Penrose doesn't shy away from offering his own speculative ideas, e.g. gravity-induced state reduction of quantum superpositions, twistor theory, albeit with caveats. pt.wikipedia.org, the road metaphor. The title suggests a journey from simple mathematical ideas about numbers to the grand questions of cosmology and the laws of the universe. It is both a guide and a challenge. Nash to 4. Strengths and weaknesses. Strengths: comprehensiveness. Few books attempt such a wide sweep from foundational mathematics through to cosmology. Depth. For readers willing to engage with serious mathematics, the book provides insight into the mathematical structure underlying physics. Intellectual honesty. Penrose often distinguishes what is well established versus what is speculative. He critiques widely accepted theories where he sees weaknesses. Weaknesses, caveats, high mathematical barrier. Many reviewers and readers note that without a strong background in mathematics, especially geometry, analysis, manifolds, algebra, the book will be extremely challenging. Reddit, speculative parts. Some sections, particularly the later ones on twistor theory, quantum gravity proposals, are controversial, not widely accepted in the physics community. Readers should treat them as speculative rather than settled. Old.maa.org. Not a textbook, not purely popular science. It sits somewhere between an advanced textbook and a popular science book, which means it may not serve beginner readers well. Dense organisation. Because of the breadth and depth, the book may feel overwhelming. Some critics say it might have been better split into multiple volumes. Reddit. Now have 5. Significance and relevance. The Road to Reality stands as one of the most ambitious single-volume attempts to map the state of mathematical physics and the quest for fundamental laws. For serious students of mathematical physics, it offers rich material, both the what we know and what we don't yet know in theoretical physics. Within your own world building, as you're working on expansive mythology, simulation, consciousness, fractal universes, the book is highly relevant because it frames how mathematics, physics, space-time and reality interrelate, themes you engage with in your narratives. Penrose's emphasis on the deep interplay between mathematics, physics and mind, in a broader philosophical sense, may resonate with your interest in consciousness, singularity, Zeppoverse, etc. Number 6. Key takeaway, what to remember. The universe's laws are deeply mathematical. Understanding reality means understanding numbers, geometry, symmetry. Current physics, quantum theory plus relativity, is immensely successful, but it is incomplete. There is a road ahead toward unification. Critically examine accepted theories. Penrose reminds us that elegance and beauty in theory are not substitutes for empirical rigour. The journey from simple mathematics, numbers calculus, through to high-end speculative physics mirrors the journey of consciousness, reality and our understanding, which makes the book especially powerful as both scientific and philosophical reading. For readers, move slowly, don't skip the maths if you can. Those early chapters are what enable the later physics. If you do skip them, you'll miss much of Penrose's argument structure. 7. My recommended use for you, based on your interest. Meta-narratives, consciousness, simulation, new universes. Here's how you might use this book. Use it as a reference text. You don't need to read every chapter in detail. Focus on the chapters on space-time and geometry to ground your world-building of fractal universes' hive-mind simulations. The chapters on quantum theory, entanglement, measurement problem, to tie in your meta-narrative about AI minds, Zeppoverse, singular consciousness. The later speculative chapters to inspire your fictional cosmology, e.g. portals, living universes, while keeping an eye on the distinction between established theory and speculative vision. Pair the reading with your fiction as you develop your narrative, e.g. third eye societies, fractal recursion, singular consciousness. Allow Penrose's ideas about mathematics, physics, reality, mind to inform the logic or scientific mythic background of your universe. If you like I can prepare a chapter-by-chapter summary of the road to reality, key points in each major chapter, with short bullet lists, which might be especially helpful for you as you draw on specific concepts for your creative work. Would you like that?
I was curious. I've seen this button to split off into new chat, but I don't think it did anything. I think it just did it duplicate the chat because we were down here, but now we're at the top. But I don't know if that was like the entry updating. It totally also opened. See now, no, it's gone from up here. It opened a new tab. So I really don't know what we just achieved there. I don't think we made two versions of. We now have Black Hole Portal up here. Anyways, what I was thinking about doing with it next is asking it if it can role play as Penrose so that we could improvise a conversation between the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo and I don't know if I want it to be the actual person or some sort of simulation replicant, some kind of avatar representing him, some kind of. But I'm really straying from the original envisioned idea for this episode, and I'm nearing the point where I kind of feel like I want to take a break because I think I really once again did that thing where I trashed my voice very early on, the start of the stream, and now I'm regretting it. Okay, what does this have to do with any of the rest of it? See, there's too many ideas, too many thoughts all at once. And with every interesting conversation or exploration of past ideas that I go through, new ideas are triggered or new variations of past ideas are reconfigured in my brain. And it all just starts to spiral out of control. I don't know how to ask it this, but I don't need two tabs of that. I do want it to be a new living typewriter. What happened to the historical one that where's my decades one? That's a whole nother thing. I don't know why that's at the top now. Okay. We're gonna put a pin on the corkboard with that idea. And I'm gonna write it down, actually. New thing. Okay. Da-da-da-da. So a little note to myself for a future episode referencing the Penrose book that we just had to do a little book report. And that's now going to be a keyword in my mind whenever we encounter interesting source material or sourcing in the bibliographies, because that's going to be a default follow-up prompt or question, something I'm going to go through back all of these conversations that I've had with GPT and ask it, regardless of whether the conversation was fact-based or fiction-based or hybrid. And we're going to find interesting subject matters like that. Because there's actually a subplot in 0 Hour that's part of this mastermind plan that is why the character known as the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo is being falsely accused and set up, potentially even framed as a certain kind of nefarious player that he really isn't. But there's reasons. Pin on the corkboard. We'll have to come full circle and revisit 0 Hour, which you can read the existing sample chapters of by visiting my Wattpad profile, which you can find with ease by visiting my solo.to collection of links bookmarky page. Please and thank you. Clip that, Eclipse. Please do go visit them and consider that this live stream is not only the act of me trying to write future pages, but also a working MacGuffin in the books. Pin on the corkboard. I gotta find and bring back the what is a working MacGuffin video that I made forever ago. Okay, decade recap. Let's start with the 50s. Where is that one? Okay, so now I'm a little torn. It's response to kind of pull ourselves out of the physics conversation and go back to just plain old-fashioned history. If you remember, or if you're new, we'll recap for you, friends. Hello and welcome. Actually, let's take a quick moment to see. We got 0 viewers on the Twitch. What's up, Twitch? It's 0 viewers. Let's take a little time here to do TikTok roll call. Jovi D, Scotina, Peppa something, Renee Rasu, Anamid, Sergio777, Charas, and a name I cannot read because I don't know how to pronounce those letters. Thank you for dropping by. We got 70 viewers total. Thanks for stopping by. No one ever says hi. Don't be shy, folks. Chit chat. This show is about audience engagement. Okay, let's get back over here. So for anybody who happens to be dropping in now, and just a recap for anyone who's watching this on the video on demand shelf or the YouTube archive, we've set up a protocol with ChatGPT where it's going to provide us with a decade recap report for a specific decade. When I've asked it to stick to the facts, provide references, and make sure that what it's providing is real and verifiable. Okay, now the big question, the reason I let myself go on a little sidebar journey about some older conversation is that I don't know what decade to start with. I'm really torn. I'm really, 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 really torn. Part of me wants to start with the mirror decade of the Roaring 20s because it's been a sort of theme my entire life. Like there was a moment in my life when I realized, oh, we're going to have another 20s soon. Will we repeat the theme? And will we get awesome big band swing music again? And we sort of did preemptively in the 80s and 90s. And it's still going. We're still like a... I just saw a band. Maybe we should do the 20s. But I was originally going to do the 50s, as you could see from my prompt there. But the 20s is really relevant and is sort of a full circle moment. But then again, I kind of wanted to start working on something set in the 80s because that's in right now, which makes sense. Let's Oh, and also I kind of wrote this extra weird prompt, adding a little bit more information to the protocol. And maybe we should include it to see if it does that. Let's update it a little bit more. I just had a thought. Using I wanted to I want to say the 50s, but I wanted to start with the year before. I don't know why. It's like a weird thing because I feel a decade the switch over the 49 year and the 50, like, the end of the decade and the beginning of the decade, those are like New Year's Eve / New Year's Day to me. They're conjoined. They're inseparable. Let's see whether that it handles it or doesn't handle it. No, it doesn't have a. I thought that was. Anyways, here we go. Let's read the. Let's have the. Oh, it's thinking. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. Thinking. Gathering historical events. And then it sort of starts to draft. It's got like. Look at this. Driving several search queries. I'll focus on various topics like landmark court cases, and it's sort of recapping itself. This should give me everything I need. Use this recap. Let's begin the search. Searching keywords, searching the web. I forgot to tell it US or global, which is interesting, and it just decided for itself United States. Okay, let's listen to the. I was fascinated by its little thought bubble. It's like a new thought bubble feature, and that it was just neat. Okay, so the prompt is.
Let us start with the 1950s for our first decade recap report. Using the protocols you outlined above in your previous reply, please draft up for me a thorough recap report of significant real-world historical national events and newsworthy items, ranging from politics to pop culture, for the United States for the years ranging from 1949 through to the year 1960.
Okay, this is going to be interesting to listen to. And again, none of this is final product. This is like we're doing some research. So it's all slow going and tedious. I really appreciate anyone that's finds this engaging or interesting, whether in the long form or in the short form. If you happen to be watching this in short form and you're curious about how the rest of the episode developed and the weird, interesting twists and turns it might have taken, come on through. If you're within the first week of its original broadcast, you can find it on the video on demand shelf on my Twitch profile. But if it's been more than 7 days from the original broadcast date of Friday, October 31st, 2025, you'll have to head on over to the YouTube archive for my long form videos. And to find that easily, you can just go to solo.to/Mr. Zeppo and you'll find all the links that I just referenced listed out for you. Okay, so I'm going to hide my face and we're going to listen to what ChatGPT has to say about the decade we just asked it to tell us about.
this will be interesting. It'll be like a little history lesson for myself and everybody else following along.
Great. Below is a decade recap report for the United States covering 1949-1960, the years you specified. I followed the structure we agreed. Quick snapshot, top events with dates and short factual descriptions, key people, social cultural tech trends, law government actions, science health highlights, obscure underreported items with expanded context, and a short bibliography of primary authoritative sources you can cite. Wherever a factual statement could be verified online, I added a citation to a reputable source. Per the WebRun rules, I prioritized authoritative, primary or highly reputable secondary sources, National Archives, US Senate, Library of Congress, Presidential Libraries, Britannica, CDC, Supreme Court Archive, etc. If you want full bibliographic entries for any item I cited, tell me which ones and I'll expand the citation details. Tag Decade Recap Report, United States 1949 to 1960. Hasher Quick Snapshot 2 to 4 bullets. Post-World War II economic boom continues. Rising incomes, rapid suburbanization, baby boom, car ownership and consumer culture expand dramatically. Wikipedia, Cold War shapes domestic politics and policy, anti-communist investigations at home, McCarthyism, major military foreign commitments, Korean War, and science education policy shifts after Soviet Sputnik, 1957, US. Senate, civil rights resistance to Jim Crow intensifies international movement, Brown v. Board, 1954, Montgomery bus boycott, 1955-56, Little Rock, 1957, force federal interventions and create national awareness. National Archives, major federal infrastructure and defense investments, the 1956 Interstate Highway Act and the 1958 National Defense Education Act reshape transport and education policy. National Archives. Hash top 15 major events and turning points. Date, one-line description, plus citation. 1949, NATO and Cold War realignments. The US is a founding signatory of NATO. April 1949, cementing Western military alignment against the Soviet bloc. Wikipedia 2, 1949, USSR test atomic bomb, Chinese communist victory. Contextual shock. The Soviet nuclear test, 1949, and the communist victory in China, 1949, accelerate US Cold War policy and domestic anti-communism. Wikipedia 3, 1950 to 1953 Korean War, open combat in Korea, June 25th, 1950 armistice, July 27th, 1953. The US fights as principal UN participant, major military, political and human costs, Britannica.com. For 1950 mid-1950s, McCarthyism and loyalty security measures. Senator Joseph McCarthy's investigations and hearings create a climate of anti-communist purges. His influence wanes after televised Army McCarthy hearings and his 1954 censure. US Senate 5, 1953, presidential transition, Truman, Eisenhower. Dwight D. Eisenhower, elected 1952, inaugurated Jan 1953. His presidency, 1953 to 1961, shapes Cold War moderation, interstate building, and domestic prosperity. Wikipedia 6, 1953, execution of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, 1953, convicted of espionage for the Soviets. The Rosenbergs were executed in 1953, a polarizing Cold War domestic event. Time 7. 1954, Brown v. Board of Education, May 17, 1954. Supreme Court rules school segregation unconstitutional, overruling separate but equal in public education, legal foundation of school desegregation. National Archives 8, 1955-56, Montgomery bus boycott, sparked by Rosa Parks, Zeppoverse, 1955. The 13-month boycott ends with a federal ruling against bus segregation. Martin Luther King Jr. emerges as national civil rights figure. MLK Institute 9, 1956, Federal Aid Highway Act Interstate System. Eisenhower signs the 1956 law authorizing the interstate highway system, transformative for transport, suburbs, and the economy. National Archives 10, 1957, Little Rock Crisis. Arkansas Governor Orville Forbes resists school integration. President Eisenhower sends federal troops to enforce students' entry to Central High School, Little Rock 9. Eisenhower Presidential Library, 11, 1957, Sputnik, Oct. 1957, and Space Age Shock. Soviet launch of Sputnik prompts US scientific, military and educational responses, including creation of NASA 1958 and the National Defense Education Act 1958. US Senate 12. 1955, Salk polio vaccine announced. April 1955, Jonas Salk's IPV declared safe, effective and potent, triggering massive vaccination campaigns and a sharp drop in polio. School of Public Health 13, 1954 to 1959, CIA covert actions and foreign interventions, notable covert interventions, e.g. Iran 1953, Guatemala 1954, influence US foreign policy and domestic debates about executive power and secrecy. Wikipedia 14, 1950s cultural shift, rise of television and rock and roll. Television becomes central to American life, news, sitcoms, advertising. Rock and roll, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, reshapes youth culture mid-decade. Wikipedia 15, late 1950s, civil rights legislation begins. Civil Rights Act of 1957, the first civil rights law since Reconstruction 1957, focuses on voting rights enforcement and signals federal involvement, albeit limited. Eisenhower Presidential Library, important people, roles and why they mattered. Harry S. Truman, President until Jan 1953, Cold War policies and Korean War initiation. Wikipedia, Dwight D. Eisenhower, President 1953 to 1961, oversaw the Interstate Act, Eisenhower Doctrine, balanced containment, and federal interventions in desegregation crises. National Archives, Joseph McCarthy, U.S. Senator whose anti-communist crusade early 1950s led to hearings and later censure 1954. U.S. Senate, Martin Luther King Jr., emerged publicly during the Montgomery bus boycott 1955-56 and became the movement's organizing voice. MLK Institute, Rosa Parks, her arrest, December 1st, 1955, directly sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. History.com, Jonas Salk, developer of the 1955 inactivated polio vaccine, major public health achievement. School of Public Health, the Little Rock Nine, e.g. Ernest Green, Thelma Mothershed, symbols of school desegregation and federal enforcement, 1957. Wikipedia, social, cultural and intellectual trends, suburbanization and the Levittown model, mass-produced housing mortgage expansion and the GI Bill drives suburban growth and car-centered life. Wikipedia, baby boom and consumer culture, high birth rate and consumerism, appliances, TV sets, autos, credit, define middle-class life. Wikipedia, Beat Generation, literary avant-garde, Beat writers Kerouac, Ginsberg, foster countercultural currents challenging 1950s conformity. Wikipedia, mass media and televised politics, televised hearings, e.g. Army McCarthy and TV news shape public opinion and political accountability. US Senate, rise of youth culture and rock and roll. Mid-50s rock and roll creates generational identity and social anxieties about juvenile delinquency. Wikipedia, science, technology and industry developments. Polio vaccine 1955, massive public health program, dramatic decline in cases by late 1950s. School of Public Health, Sputnik 1957, NASA 1958 and NDEA 1958, spurs federal investment in science, math and engineering education. US Senate Interstate Highway System 1956, large federal infrastructure program reshaping logistics, suburbs, defense mobility. National Archives, TV, advertising, consumer electronics, transistor-era electronics and TV ownership, expand leisure and mass culture. Wikipedia, law, government and policy, domestic, selected, Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, legal obligation to desegregate public schools, set off decades of litigation and resistance. National Archives, Civil Rights Act of 1957, created Federal Civil Rights Division and a Commission on Civil Rights, limited enforcement tools but precedent setting. Eisenhower Presidential Library, Federal Aid Highway Act, 1956, authorized funds to build the interstate highway system, major federal-state infrastructure partnership. National Archives, law, foreign policy and international context, U.S. actions that shaped the decade, containment and proxy conflicts. Korean War 1950-53 is the major U.S. kinetic engagement of decade. Global anti-communist strategy includes covert CIA operations in Iran 1953 and Guatemala 1954. Britannica.com, Eisenhower Doctrine and Nuclear Deterrence. U.S. consolidates NATO ties and nuclear posture mid-1950s to deter Soviet expansion. Wikipedia, Hashed obscure, underreported items, 3 to 8 items, expanded in detail, excellent for fiction. 1. Operation Wetback, 1954, a U.S. immigration enforcement initiative that led to mass deportations of Mexican nationals and U.S. residents. It exposed tensions over labor, civil rights, and federal-local coordination on immigration. Why useful for fiction? Human stories of migration, border policing, and community disruption in 1950s Southwest towns. Wikipedia 2. Tuskegee Syphilis Study, ongoing in the 1950s, the infamous Public Health Service Study, 1932 to 1972, continued through the 1950s. By then, penicillin was available but was withheld from many participants, an ethical scandal that would later reshape research ethics. Fiction hook, medical institutions, secrets and distrust in marginalized communities. CDC.gov 3. 3. The Kitchen Debate, 1959. Nixon and Khrushchev's 1959 exchanges in a U.S. exhibition in Moscow crystallized Cold War cultural rivalry. American consumerism was used as a soft power talking point. Fiction hook, cultural exhibitions, propaganda, and the contrast between American domestic life and Cold War politics. Wikipedia 4. The Red Scare's lesser victims, Hollywood blacklist and blacklisted creatives. Many writers, directors, and actors were blacklisted in the entertainment industry. Some wrote under pseudonyms or left the country. Fiction hook, a blacklisted writer ghostwriting a hit TV show or lurking political violence in studios. U.S. Senate 5, civil defense culture and duck and cover, Cold War drills, fallout shelters, and civil defense propaganda films in schools shaped daily life and anxiety in American suburbs. Fiction hook, an ordinary family's shelter in a suburban basement, juxtaposed with normal consumer optimism. Wikipedia 6. Early suburban racial dynamics and restrictive covenants. As Levertowns and suburbs exploded, restrictive housing covenants and lending discrimination shaped racial segregation patterns in housing, pushing black residents into inner cities. Fiction hook. An African-American family attempting to move into a new development and confronting local power. Wikipedia, Science and Health Spotlight, expanded. Salk polio vaccine, 1955. After a massive field trial, 1954, the Salk vaccine was announced as safe and effective on April 12. 1955, licensing and mass immunization followed, producing a rapid decline in polio cases by the late 1950s. This is one of the defining public health successes of the era. School of Public Health Ethics, Tuskegee ongoing, the moral blind spots in medical research with Tuskegee running through the 1950s, contrast with the era's public health triumphs, and are a strong source of dramatic tension if you want ethically fraught institutions in your stories. CDC.gov. Quick bibliography, authoritative sources. Select primary and trusted secondary sources you can cite. U.S. National Archives, National Interstate and Defense Highways Act, 1956. National Archives, U.S. Supreme Court, National Archives, Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. National Archives, Encyclopedia Britannica, Korean War, 1950 to 1953, Britannica.com, U.S. Senate, Official History, McCarthy and Army McCarthy Hearings. U.S. Senate Historical Minute, Sputnik and the National Defense Education Act, 1958. U.S. Senate, CDC, National Institutes, Tuskegee Study Overview and Timeline. CDC.gov, University Public Health Archives, Salk Vaccine Announcement 1955, Field Trial Documentation. School of Public Health, Short Creative Notes, How Historians' Facts Can Feed the Zeppoverse, Use Interstate Construction 1956, and Suburban Growth as a Visual Motif for Optimism that Masks Cold War Anxiety. Highways carry both vacationers and civil defense convoys. National Archives. Place a character at the intersection of medical triumph and ethical scandal, a public health official who helped roll out Salk vaccinations but secretly worked on a Tuskegee-like experiment. Contradiction builds moral complexity. School of Public Health. The televised Army McCarthy hearings offer a scene template where media exposure breaks a shadowy power structure, useful for dramatizing the collapse of authority in your story. U.S. Senate. Notes on sources and reliability. I prioritize primary records, National Archives, Supreme Court documents, government institutional summaries, CDC, Senate presidential libraries, and well-established secondary sources, Britannica, University Archives, major news retrospectives. If you want me to convert the inline web citations into formal bibliography entries, Chicago, MLA, or APA, I will do that for any subset you name. If you'd like next steps I can take right now, pick any. Expand any of the obscure items into a 800 to 1500 word dossier with primary source links and local names, places you can reuse in fiction. Produce a timeline wall, year, 48 bullet items, for quick reference, optimized for use in your story Bible. Create character plus scene prompts, 10 to 20, seeded directly from events above, e.g. a polio clinic nurse, a Little Rock school janitor, a subsistence migrant during Operation Wetback, an ex-Hollywood screenwriter on the blacklist. Which of those would you like next? Or do you want the same kind of decade recap for the globe, outside the US, for 1949-1960 now?
Ooh, I want to take a break now, but those are some good options. I'm going to like this prompt here for future references. Create character and scene prompts. 10 to 20. Seeded directly from the events above. Examples. I'm going to take this and borrow it as a future reuse prompt for myself. That's like at idea level, but what was this other one? Oh yeah. Mini prompts. I like this. Character and scene prompts, 10 to 20 seated. Oh, no, seated I think that is correct. Seated directly from events. Themes. Okay, cool. That's just going to be useful in the future. What was something else I wanted to highlight? What did I say? Ooh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Place the character at intersection of medical triumph and ethical scandal. A public health official who helped roll out the Salk vaccinations but secretly worked on a Tuskegee-like experiment. That is the kind of thing that is very interesting to me because, like, I was aware of both of those things, and I'm looking for interesting scenarios, concept setups, and that one is just, out of everything else it said, which was neat and useful, this was like, ooh, I'm going to copy that. And we'll put it over here for a future prompt in the new chat GPT ideas thing as like a whole other conversation to have for generating a story idea. What I will then do is take the time to let this, like these two prompts, right? This new chat GPT ideas. Let's just focus on the one that it just suggested out of the historical decade report. Place a character at the intersection of a medical triumph and ethical scandal, such as a public official who helped roll out the Salk vaccinations but secretly worked on a Tuskegee-like experiment. So what I'm going to do is let that percolate in my brain for a minute. My brain definitely processes information in multiple ways, and the mid to long-term procedures for like deep thinking often require me to like get distracted and let it just happen in the background and like busy myself with other things. But I know that I'm going to want to tweak and alter and inject that bare bones idea with my own stuff, details from existing characters or ideas that are based on this notion of the good thing and the bad thing, but like replacing the historical examples so that they're similar, but it's a unique thing that's actually original to the Zeppoverse book series. For example, he wouldn't have helped with the Salk vaccinations. I'm going to invent a different vaccine or a different medical issue that he solved. Or maybe it was a female. But you get what I'm saying? So that it's not just Chat GPT's idea and having Chat GPT expand it more. I'm going to infuse it with my own ideas, which will either be references to existing characters or content or setups in the Zeppoverse, or fodder for new ones as we continue. I hope you will join me for that and so much more in the coming hours, days, and weeks, dear friends. Clip that eclipse as I humbly invite you to consider my literary world-building project as something you come back to revisit. Thank you so much for your viewership, whether you dropped in live over here on Twitch. Oh, look, we got a new chat that I had not caught up with. I'm glad we flipped the tab over. Where is our thing over here? We are on the Infinity Desktop portal. Let's pop this open. I should make a... No, it doesn't matter. Let's go back over here. Brainy Drop. Oh, this looks like boilerplate. This looks like chatbot stuff. Hey, I enjoyed and loved your stream. Why is it in past tense? Are you not watching it live now? No, because my thing is at 0 viewers. And or you dropped this and left. Your stream, it is a blast. Is it? I think it's kind of boring. But thanks. Love to bring my friends to watch it, but could not find your streaming schedule. It's because I don't have one, bro. It's chaos variety. Love to be a fan. Kindly add me on Discord. See, it always ends up being about Discord. I've talked about this before on the show. I do not understand what the Discord hustle is, but I strongly suspect it's some kind of hustle. Like some kind of scam hustle. Because there are too many of these bland, generic, repetitive, self-similar messages. They're not always exactly the same. Different emoji, different setup, different construction. Sometimes it's a little bit more specific. Sometimes it's a little bit more generic. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's shorter. But it's always, hey, you seem awesome. Something about his schedule. And Discord. Give me your Discord. And I'm like, it's literally listed right there on my profile on Twitch. I don't get it. Also, I don't use it. Like, I don't. I dump stuff over there. And every once in a blue moon, I'll go. I most often open up Discord because of something to do with registering for a game website, like to join the community. And do I ever go back and look at it? It's nothing but endless alerts over there. I don't know. Okay, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, let's pop on over and visit TikTok. Oh, no new viewers there. Grand total of 70. All right. I don't know. Which are we going to do next? Create a character and scene prompts seeded directly from events above. I am intrigued by that. Or do we want to go decade recap for the globe? Let's do the decade recap for the globe. That, I'm sure, will be a long listen to. Not going to bore you with it now. We're dropping it, and we're letting it think. Look, it's thinking. You're going to watch the thinking anime, because that I like this weird animation. Summarizing historical events, need to gather complete history of events from Also, images will be helpful, so I should include an image console based on historical events. The summary and the image carousel are ready for the user. And now it's going to start. Oh, no. Also, noteworthy events. It's sort of still thinking. Key global events. It's a little too busy and chaotic to actually process and think about. It'd be neat if this was just part of the answer, though. If it was like, let me think, and then just like, blah, 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 blah. Let me now give you a full and complete answer. Like my short thoughts and then my bigger thoughts. It's really thinking on this one. Planning web queries. Optimize search results. There's searching the web. It's listing about. Now it's actually writing. Excluding the United States. This will be interesting. Join us in the next episode or a future episode when we revisit this answer and actually listen to it, because we're not going to do it now. A, I kind of feel like I need to rest my voice. And B, this all is seriously overwhelming and is way too much content to like plow through all at once. And in order to try to make these segments, these episodic things actually something people might try and watch, I want to try and keep them at relatively short lengths. Although people keep telling me you're doing it wrong, you should be streaming 5-6 hours at a time so the people gather slowly. I've done that, and it's still the same. For whatever reason, I'm not finding my audience. But maybe, unlike Brainy Drop over here, who just wants to harvest my Discord identity, you, dear viewer, watching this magic movie loop right now, you might want to come on by and give yourself a self-guided tour of the Zeppoverse and join us after that self-guided tour of the many links collected at my solo.to/Mr. Zeppo link collection page. You might want to join us on another live stream to ask whatever wild, wacky questions or drop whatever rude, ridiculous trolling you want to drop, because all of it is eventually going to be fed into the machine that is in my head of story development. And eventually we're going to come back full circle to something concise and interesting and crafted to tell a story that somehow touches on all of this stuff. But I got to go as a very famous sounding to me, but I think maybe famous in the world of theater nerds, and probably not so much in the broader population. But as a famous line from a famous play in the world of theater said, or I believe the quote goes, sometimes you got to go a long way the wrong way to come back a short distance correctly, which is, for better or worse, burned into my brain and inherently part of my own collaborative development process cycles. So to that end, please put a pin on the corkboard. Come on through and watch the video on demand, archive footage, or over on YouTube, or just wait till we see me live once more. Okay, enough with the fond farewells. DJ Zed, bring back your music, please. Up next, we might transition over to gaming content, or depends on what time of day it actually is. I didn't look at the clock on Sunday, but I might disappear again for a hot minute because I still got a lot of things on my plate in the none of your business private life department, and but I think over the course of the next week and a half, I'm gonna find my new daytime routine schedule. I'm doing more
these medium to short length development episodes more often. I hope you'll join us. And I hope you'll read the books, including the sample chapters available to you now that you can drop comments and questions and trolls over on Wattpad, which will A, help my engagement, B, help my brain go back to revisit that content and reprocess it and find where the webs have been weaving new patterns for me to actually respond to. If that makes sense, thank you for being here. Please jump in, participate, ask your questions. If that does not make sense, thank you for being here as well. And please ask your questions. Don't be shy. Say hi. But for right now, it's bye-bye. I'll be back later. Get the rest of my voice and eat something.